Hey, 6th graders, Mrs. Simonson here. Tonight we are working with rates. We've got 3 different objectives. The first is to identify and use rates to compare quantities. The second is to find the unit rates. And the third is to use our knowledge of multiplication and division to solve rate problems. So let's get started with thinking about what is a rate. A rate is simply a ratio that compares two amounts of different units. For example, we could have a price for every item. Those are two different units, dollars and cents, and items. Another example would be distance in amount of time. Let's say 60 miles per hour. Miles and hours are different units, so therefore they are rates. It's important to note that all rates are types of ratios, but not all ratios are rates. Here are some ratios that are not rates. Number of boys for number of girls. Now, granted, boys and girls are quite different, but ultimately they're both people, and therefore not different units. Here's another non-example. Number of blue shirts for every number of yellow shirts. Though they are different colors, ultimately both of those groups are still shirts. So let's get you started with identifying some rates. Please solve problems 1A and through 1C in your math notebook, classifying the following ratios as a rate or not a rate. If it's a rate, use a capital R. If it's not a rate, use a capital NR. Press play when you're ready to see your work. Now that you know what rates are, you want to use a certain rate that's especially helpful in solving a lot of problems, and that's the unit rate. This is a rate where one unit has a value of 1. For example, $34 per 1 hour, or 26 miles per 1 gallon, or 50 cents per 1 candy bar. It's important for you to know what a unit rate is and be able to identify it. So again, I have 3 more problems for you to solve in your math notebook. Please solve problems 2A through 2C in your notebook. If the rate is a unit rate, write a capital UR. If it's not a unit rate, write a capital NUR. And then press play when you're ready to check your answers. Now that you can identify unit rates, it's important for you to know how to find a unit rate. You can find a unit rate by finding an equivalent rate, setting one of the units to be 1. Let me show you how that works. Let's say I can write a 2-page report in 40 minutes. To find a unit rate, I would need to either set the pages to 1 or the minutes to 1. It would be most logical for me to know how long it would take me to write 1 page, rather than to know how much I can write in 1 minute. So I can set up the equivalency much like we did in the ratios lesson. 2 is to 40 as 1 is to some number. Now I can look at this by finding out what can I do to this 2 to make it a 1. Well, I can divide it by 2. I can then apply that same thing to the 40 and I can find that I can write a 1-page report in 20 minutes. That's my unit rate. Alright, now it's time for you to try to practice finding a unit rate. For number 3 and 4, set it up to try to find the equivalent rate and really think about which unit would make most sense to set to 1. When you're ready to check your work, press play. Unit rates can be especially helpful when you're solving rate problems. Let me show you how that can work. Let's say I make $54 in 18 hours of work, and I want to know how much I would make in 27 hours. Well, let's set up my rate, $54, 18 hours of work. And ultimately, I want to find out what 27 hours of work would let me make. Now there's no number that I'm looking at here that I can multiply or divide 18 by to make 27. So I'm going to first take this rate and make it into a unit rate. I want to know how much I'm making per 1 hour. I can find that by dividing both parts of my rate by 18. And if I do so, I find that I'm making $3 an hour. Now I can apply that to solve for 27 hours. If I make $3 in 1 hour, I'm going to make 27 times that in 27 hours. When I solve that, I will find out that I will make $81 in 27 hours. All right, now it's your chance to practice. Please solve numbers 5 and 6 in your math notebook. Be aware that you might need to find the unit rate first and then solve for the portion of the rate the question's asking. Press play when you're ready to check your work. Alright, so we built on our knowledge about ratios tonight by looking at a specific type of ratio called a rate. We identified and used rates to compare quantities. We learned how to find unit rates and then used those unit rates to solve rate problems. Review any part of this video before taking the quiz at Schoology. We'll see you soon.